There's no denying that the Steam Deck OLED completely reignited and then transformed my gaming hobby. I would say it has gone as far as revive a lot of aspects of gaming for me, primarily because it granted me access to games all over and allowed me to play games a little bit more flexibly. It's the very reason why the Steam Deck was such a powerful, or a game changer for that matter, in my life. Not only did it bring me my games anywhere, right? That didn't make any sense, but you get what I'm saying. But it brought my favorite franchises everywhere. I'm a huge fan of Nintendo franchises, as I've stated multiple times over. Something that I've been thinking about lately is how can I get as streamlined as possible? How can I reduce in order to enjoy this hobby more? And the idea of minimalism came to mind. I'm someone who is a fan of paring down as much as possible. To a fault, but still paring down. So what I have decided was today I want to talk about a specific rule that I apply to a lot of things in my life, but only just recently started to apply to video games. There's a rule in the fitness world we call minimum effective dose. It is exactly the way it sounds. How little do you have to do in order to get the maximum results? Because if you want to have a physiological change, a performance change, or increase any sort of health metric, it'd be better if you can keep coming back stronger and stronger and stronger without having to spend 1, 2, 3 hours overdoing it. And that's pretty much what minimum effective dose means. Then we get into something that is the latter part of minimum effective dose, which is law of diminishing return. So with minimum effective dose, you're looking for the bare minimum you have to do to have the most effective dose or most effective result. And the law of diminishing return is what is the top end of that to where you can start adding additional work and stuff like that, but you're getting single digit percentages, or you're reversing some of the progress, right? Such as someone who lifts a lot and then goes and runs and does a bunch of cardiovascular work, you may be stunting any sort of muscular change you're going to make to your body or structural change because of what you're doing. Anyway, that's fitness. Video games. With video games, I've been trying to think about this. How do I apply this law of diminishing return and minimum effective dose to my gaming? With all the different devices that have come out, I feel like we have gotten to a point where the options are plentiful. Whether you're going with Xbox, PlayStation, PC, Nintendo, emulation, portable PCs, there are so now iOS and Mac OS is now coming into it. There's so many different ways that you can play some really, really awesome games. Now, I'm going to remove my affinity for specific franchises from this conversation because what you have right here, I think, is by far the most versatile and I would consider the minimum effective dose. Now, there's another aspect of this that I think is really important to take into consideration, and it applies to the same two laws, minimum effective dose and law of diminishing return, and that comes to convenience, or is convenience. Technically on paper, all you would need is a Steam Deck, right? That's it. And why the Steam Deck has to do with the simplicity that exists here in this space, right? Of course, if there's someone who is into some huge AAA PC titles that require extra inputs and different things, the Steam Deck isn't going to be the case, but I would argue that for over 90% of gamers out there that are watching this or have consoles and play console games, this is the loadout. This right here, the Steam Deck, Switch OLED, and some sort of emulation device. I would argue that the RG35XX SP is probably one of the best on the market right now. Anyway, continuing. The convenience factor. Technically on paper, you can do everything that's right here on this. You would need to be able to dump the games off of carts and then pull them and extract them and bring them over to here and use an emulator. It is technically possible. but I'm trying to stick to a little bit more of a realistic situation, a convenience factor. All that work, that back-end work that exists to bring Nintendo Switch titles onto your Steam Deck is just a little bit more or outside of the realm of possibility for me. Okay, we're talking plain and simple. If convenience is the number one thing that we're considering, also with convenience is ease of use, as well as a father, husband, a very, very busy person, we need to be able to get into our games and get out of our games quickly, effectively, and consistently. Starting with the least and going to the most, an emulation device. Now, if you're not into playing older titles, something along those lines, this may not be necessary for you. You certainly can do everything right here on this, but I'm going to be honest, for the $60 that this is, and the games you can get on something like this, the form factor is so incredible. Sure, you can play ROMs on your phone, but I think that separating leisure from business is important, and so I like having dedicated machines to do these jobs. This right here grants me access to my Game Boy Advance games and stuff like that, and I think that the ease of use of something like the RG35XX Plus is out of this world insane. Let's roll. And we're going with a 2. Ice Blue. Sick. And so I would say that the RG35XX Plus, not Plus, XXSP, the Plus is what I used to have, is probably the least necessary. It's the additional set of bicep curls or the extra steak on the grill that is not necessarily needed, but you have a little extra and that's kind of nice. So that's where I go with the emulation. I think I've only used 3 devices now. RG35XX Plus, I've used a Miu Mini, I think is what it's called, and I've now used this. This is by far the greatest and best. I've used this way more than I ever used the other 2 combined because of the ease of use. When I close it, it turns off. When I want to turn it on, I just press the power button. It's good to go. It boots me into my last game. The screen's good enough. It's definitely more powerful enough to play my Game Boy Advance and Super Nintendo games that I want to play in this form factor. It's great. It can do more than that, but that's all I require of this. And so this is very important in my loadout. I have no intention of getting rid of this. Now, recently I have talked about how I'm paring down, how I'm getting rid of my PlayStation. Now, people are like, don't sell anything, you'll regret it. Well, here's the deal. I've done a lot of research. I've done a lot of consideration, and my reason for getting rid of the PlayStation, I think was misinterpreted. I didn't do a good job. I kind of made a video based on my excitement for a specific topic and did a poor job articulating really what the excitement was about. I've felt overwhelmed by this gaming hobby. I felt extremely weighed down by it, and it's because of the amount of options we have out there. Now, that's a me problem. I don't think that's a you problem, and I don't think that's an industry problem. I just think for me, those options have become cumbersome. So I'm looking for a way to enjoy my gaming again, go back to my roots, right, of course, the Marios, the Zeldas, having a good time doing that, and get back to what I love about gaming, which is just playing the game. And some of my more comforting titles like Zelda and Mario are the ones that I gravitate towards. Trying to stay relevant in this space has always been tough for me because I didn't grow up playing some of these crazy big franchises like Gears of War, Halo, God of War, any of those. I stuck to stuff that was really simple, Kingdom Hearts and Zelda and stuff like that, and that was just for me. Now that we're getting into this more and more, really what this has to do with is a lot less about Nintendo, Steam Deck, PlayStation, Xbox, but rather video game minimalism. How can I minimize? How can I reduce the gear? How can I get down more and more? As I do this in different aspects of my life, I'm trying to figure out where I can cut stuff away. I'm trying to systematically go through every aspect of my life and figure out where is the place that I can just use the least amount of gear and have the minimum effective dose and get out of law of diminishing return. Okay. And so we've covered the emulation device, and next is Nintendo. Now, a lot of people that are fans of Nintendo, we often look at things with rose-colored glasses or Nintendo-colored glasses. There's not much they can do that's wrong. Yes, Nintendo's highly litigious. Yes, they resell their games for $60. Yes, they never go on sale. And yes, sometimes their ports are just insultingly bad. But for some reason, this company is able to do these things, and we as fans look at them and go, all right, let's go for it. And I'm going to be the first to admit I'm there too. I'm not even going to try to come back and be like, I can't believe in it. I don't care. I just don't care. I really don't. And I've cared about other things like Ubisoft and making statements against Ubisoft and statements against Twitch and all this stuff. I need to tone it back. Here's the deal. I think that it's a lot more important to find what you like rather than to find what you don't like, right? I think it's really important to attach yourself to the good rather than search out and glorify the bad. And so when it comes to Nintendo as a whole, love them or hate them, the reason why I find the Nintendo Switch to be so important for me is because of my extreme and deep, deep love for a lot of their franchises. I also absolutely adore the form factor. The OLED display on the Nintendo Switch OLED is phenomenal, and the other gimmicks that come with it. The Joy-Cons and the different colors, as well as the actual form factor and the portability. And I don't know what it is, but when I remove the Joy-Cons and I hold this in my hand and think, this right here, this piece of machinery, which again is basically just like an Android device, but anyway, this piece of machinery right here is the experience. This is a portal into Hyrule. This is a pipe into the Mushroom Kingdom. This is just one gust away from a dreamland with Kirby. It's wild to me. It's so cool, especially when you have stuff like a PlayStation 5, which is the size of half of my room, or a Series X, which is a box that you think you should undo to get into the actual device itself, or even a gaming PC. Everything's so large. The fact that this is so exciting. And so form factor does have a lot to do with it, but when we're thinking about minimum effective dose, we look at a combo here that is just outside of pocketable, but absolutely and unequivocally able to be put into a backpack easily. Whether you're going to work, going to a friend's house, whatever it may be, these two devices, very easy. Now we get into the console killer. The Steam Deck. I know that the console war is alive and well, but I think that for me, the console war is a lot less about what is best and a lot more about what grants me the most access. While my affinity for video games often is associated with Nintendo titles because of my history with this hobby, I can't deny that the Steam Deck has piqued my interest as well as revived this hobby for me. This device right here is the reason why I can finally cut ties with the console gaming that I have done for the past 3 decades. The PlayStation, the Xbox, those two consoles that I've spent hundreds if not thousands of dollars on their libraries, not Xbox, but PlayStation, I now can finally lay to rest. I think that when it comes to video games as a whole, and especially as us parents and us, spouses, or just the gaming minimalists that I hope you want to be with me, the idea of being able to shed weight and get into the minimum effective dose is so important and paramount. There are 2 games on the PlayStation 5 that I cannot play on my Steam Deck. Those 2 games are Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Final Fantasy XVI. Those 2 games are the 2 games I also coincidentally have completed in the past year on PlayStation. 2 of what I would consider to be the greatest games I've played on my PlayStation. Now, conveniently, I don't need to go back and play those 2 games right now. There's no need. What's exciting is PlayStation or Sony rather, is having issues, and this isn't exciting, but it's good for us. They're having a little bit of issues selling their games on their consoles, and so we're starting to see PC get more and more of their titles. Some of the biggest games that they've released are coming over here. A game that I never thought would ever come to a PC or go anywhere outside of the PlayStation ecosystem is none other than, say it with me, Ratchet and Clank. I knew you weren't going to actually say Ratchet and Clank, but come on now. I love Ratchet and Clank. Am I going to buy it for my Steam Deck? I don't know. But Ratchet and Clank, that has been, for me, their Mario. I know that some might say it's Crash. No, Crash Bandicoot was only for PlayStation 1, 2. I think it went over to Xbox and PlayStation 3 era, maybe 4. I don't know. Either way, when it comes to PlayStation, I've always thought of a couple different franchises as being theirs. Crash Bandicoot, God of War, not Crash Bandicoot, Ratchet and Clank, God of War, Aloy from the Horizon series, and all of those games are available here on PC technically, but the Steam Deck. Now, when it comes to minimum effective dose, I'm thinking to myself, what is the absolute bare minimum I need to enjoy those games at like the best I can? How can I get the most out of my gear? What is the least amount of money I have to spend to have the most benefit? And I honestly believe that this is it, right here. If we're to retail this all out, we have, I believe it's $550. We have $350, and we have $60. That right there is, with tax, $1,000. $1,000 is access to arguably 99% of the games that exist right now. 99. There are a handful of games that you will not be able to play on something like the Steam Deck, some first-person competitive games, but chances are, if you are into the Call of Duties, Apex, well, you can play Apex on this, but Fortnite, stuff like that, this probably isn't the best form factor anyway, but you play Fortnite on the Nintendo Switch, and Apex, oddly enough. And then eventually Call of Duty, so there you go, actually. Valorant's coming to PlayStation. Will it come to the Nintendo Switch too? I don't know. This right here, I believe to be the loadout. Not the best, but the. There's nothing else that comes close to this. I've thought about it at length. Some would say, well, what about the Asus ROG Ally? What about the Lenovo Legion Go? And I would argue that those two devices are a little bit crazier. They grant you more access, certainly, and they are more versatile, absolutely, but they come with a lot of additional work that I, as a father and as a husband, don't want to spend. I need to be able to press a power button and have the option to play my games immediately. I need to be able to turn on the device and not have to worry about any sort of issues that may arise because of updates or something like that. I need to make sure that when it comes to my gaming hobby, there is the least amount of dissonance in between my decision making. I don't want to have all of these different complicated things. And lastly, and I would argue the most importantly, that didn't make sense, but the most important aspect of this, aside from convenience, is I want to be in control of my media. While I don't believe that Nintendo is the best at delivering control over your media, when it comes to physical media, they are kind of the last dying breed. They still have physical media. Sure, you get physical media for PlayStation and Xbox, but we see what they're doing. Xbox just released their new lineup of consoles, and there was none other than a digital Xbox Series X. Yes, there was also a 2 terabyte Xbox Series X, but we see really where that industry is going. I mean, there's no denying that digitally, here we are. And I told you before, and I am doubling down on this, even in light of all the conversations I've had about Nintendo, when it comes to digital purchases, for the most part, they're just going to be on something like a Steam Deck. And that's because Steam does the best job at managing digital purchases. But if I'm going to play a game like Kakarot, if I'm going to do these kind of things, I want them to be in a library that is going to be a little bit better managed. I don't want to have to worry about if new hardware comes out, I'm not going to be able to access those games because they're just not going to come over as easily. That's important to me. And so when we're talking about gaming minimalism, when we're talking about digital, well, that's a different topic, digital minimalism, but when we're talking about the minimum effective dose, this is it. This is it. This right here, what you're looking at. Hey, there, look at that triangle, all different. What is that called when a triangle is all different lengths on each side? I don't know, whatever. This is it. What's also even more exciting is if we're going to look at cases, how does this pack down? Well, right here, switch. Done. The loadout, right? The Tomtoc case with the Skull & Co. This. Done. And this obviously doesn't need a case because look, it's fully closed. Done. That's pretty special. This right here, what I am holding is 99% of the gaming that you'll ever need. And arguably, you probably don't need something like this. It's just charming. Let me know what you guys think. I know that I've talked a lot about my affinity for Nintendo, and I want to be clear that my focus on the Nintendo space is purely because I feel like the console Nintendo provides me with, whether it's the Switch or the Super Switch, is granting me access to my favorite franchises. But when it comes to my gaming as a whole, what I use as JD, or Julian as you know me, this is it. The PlayStation is awesome. Xbox is great. But the minimum effective dose for this portable Papa is right here. I can go anywhere in the world in all of my games I have with me. Now, we still have to deal with decision fatigue, but that's another topic for another day. This excites me. This is great. This right here is the minimum effective dose. All right, guys. Happy gaming.